Okay.
Well, when Kathy first asked us to speak here today, we were a bit confused as to why she asked us in the first place, because we thought that we couldn't relate to any immigrants because we're not immigrants, and we thought there was nothing very interesting about our lives. But we talked with our parents for a very, very long time, and we discovered that there's more significance in our lives than we thought there were.
Our parents are from Bangladesh. You may or may not have heard of this country. It's super tiny. It's next to India in South Asia. And growing up, we heard so many stories about this faraway land that was home to our parents. My mom would tell us stories about how she would steal a mango from her neighbor's tree and like run with her friends. And my dad would like come home from school and just like put soap in their hair and run back to the river just so they can bathe with all their friends. And obviously these stories are not relevant to us because if I want a mango, I go to Fry's. Or if I want to take a shower, I just go upstairs and take a shower. I don't need to like walk a mile to the river. But whenever they say these stories, they seem so happy and they seem so submerged in memories. And it makes me wonder, why would somebody ever want to leave that happiness behind to go to an alien country?
So my dad first came to America in 1992, and he was a very politically involved man in Bangladesh. Back then, student council was something that wasn't just planning prom and homecoming. It was, you're very involved with the government, you're very involved with the politicians, and unfortunately, one of his very good friends was brutally murdered for sharing his political opinion. And my father obviously didn't feel safe there anymore, and he knew he didn't want to stay in a country where he nor his future children could be safe without expressing their thoughts. So he had left Bangladesh and he had come to America.
1997 was the year my parents got married. My dad went back to Bangladesh to get married to my mom, and it was like most weddings in South Asia at that time. It was arranged. They like knew each other for a week, and she decided to like get on a plane with him, with this random man. And I asked her, I was like, why would you want to come to like an entire foreign country with some random man you've only known him for like a week? Like, what made you do that? Like, what made you leave your family, your friends, and everything you established there? And her answer was super simple. She said, well, I watch a lot of movies and films like Charlie Chaplin and Tarzan, which I don't even think Tarzan is in America. I watched those movies. And she said, I was curious to see if America was really like that. Was it as clean as they like make it out to be? Is it really the land of opportunities?
My mom obviously had a little bit of a rough start when she first came to America. She struggled with the language, she struggled with fitting in, and she was in this country that she knows no one, and she hardly knew my dad either. And actually on her first day in America, she was in this small little apartment by herself, and she had never felt more alone in her life. She was so far away from her family. Her husband had gone to work for many hours, and she was in this foreign country. And that day, actually, she spent sitting on this small little dirty couch, crying to herself the entire day, and she was wondering if she made the right decision coming to America.
I was born 1998 here in Phoenix, Arizona, so Valley girl. And growing up was different for me. Obviously, I had immigrant parents, and I knew I was different. When I started kindergarten, I could barely speak any English. I grew up learning Bengali. So I was put in an English speaking program in kindergarten. And the problem was everybody in that class was Hispanic. So the English was taught in Spanish. So which is another language I didn't know. So I had to kind of, figure it out. I observed other people's conversations. I watched a lot of cartoons, like a lot. And that's how I learned English. And it turned out the English speaking program and the cartoons helped because Dora the Explorer taught me English and Spanish.
So by the time I got to kindergarten, I did know English because Jamila would come home and say random words and kind of just catch on. even though I did know English, I still felt a bit different from my other classmates. For example, I knew that when I went home that night, instead of eating spaghetti and green bean casserole and all that fun stuff, I would have a plate of rice and curry every single night, the same thing. And I knew that sometimes on the weekends there were Bengali events, and I would have to wear these long traditional sar kamises, which were a bit itchy, very uncomfortable actually. And although all my Bengali aunts and uncles, they were like, "Oh, you look so beautiful," I didn't feel beautiful at all, because I knew that my friends at school were wearing jeans and t-shirts, and they looked so cool with their Abercrombie and Fitch, you know, and I wanted to be them, and I didn't want to be different. But I wish that there was a way that I could go back and tell my younger self that there's nothing to be ashamed of. And back then, I had kind of created a little double life for myself. At school, I was strictly American, and at home, I was Bengali.
Our first trip to Bangladesh was when I was in the 4th grade and Fatima was in the 3rd. And this was the first time we got to experience something so cultural and so exotic, I guess. I remember there were boys playing in like muddy soccer fields, and there were people riding in rickshaws, and there were men selling fish at the bazaar right by my grandma's house. And it was so colorful, and everyone was so caring. And it was so beautiful. We loved being in Bangladesh. I remember being, when we would go to the village, my sister and I would wake up bright and early in the morning, quickly eat breakfast, and then run out the door seeking our next adventure. And that could be either riding in a cow cart or going to big, beautiful mosques and praying. But despite reliving our parents' memories and experiencing what they must have felt when they were in Bangladesh, you know, the excitement and the culture, we got to see other aspects of Bangladesh. Bangladesh is a developing country, and we saw that living conditions were poor, and no matter how hard a student actually tried to excel, they couldn't. They were always stunted because there were minimum resources. And we couldn't help but compare this to our home in the States.
Now, of course, we understand their parents' sacrifice and their experiences, and you must all be thinking, "Oh, what petty lives you guys have lived," you know? But it's embarrassing to even stand here and talk to you guys about complaining about such a beautiful culture that you have all fought so hard to preserve. And I wish there really was a way that I could just time travel and tell my younger self, like, "Hey, you're Bengali, that's okay. You are so beautiful," you know? But obviously it was very difficult. And, you know, I wish there was a way to go back, but there's...
The only struggle we had, we understand that we didn't have to struggle because our parents struggled so that we wouldn't have to. The only thing we had to struggle as first-generation kids was figuring things out on our own. Obviously, our parents didn't know a lot of American culture, so we would go to school, learn them ourselves, come home, and then pester our parents about it. In kindergarten, my class took a field trip to the farm, and my dad was supposed to chaperone, but instead he brought the entire family as if it was a vacation. And I was so embarrassed because it was like that one random South Asian family with like a bunch of like kindergartners. And I had to go home and tell my dad, like, "Dad, like field trips are like a student thing only with like possibly one parent. Please, next time, no more." Okay. And as far as teaching my dad about clothes, I don't think he'll ever get like culture and like clothes in any culture. So
so as I grow up, I realize how wrong I was as a child. And Jamila and I have been taking a lot of time learning about our culture, and I see even more beauty in it. Obviously, like I said before, we do understand our parents' sacrifice, and we've set higher expectations for ourselves now than we ever have, because we want to make our parents' transition worthwhile. We study so hard now. We're more involved in our culture and our community now. And we really hope that we can make it up to our parents for how much they had struggled for us, we want to show them that, hey, we appreciate you, we respect what you did.
Imagining my mom sitting there on that couch the first day she was here, crying to herself, wondering if this was worth it, breaks me inside. I wish I could go back in time and have her take a glimpse of what the future had in store. I wish she could have seen that she wouldn't be forever, or she wouldn't be alone forever, and that she would not only build herself, but 2 daughters in a foreign country. What dreams she had and her battle, inspires me to pursue even higher. Inspires both of us, and I think we speak on behalf of all first-generation kids when we say this. Thank you.